Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes. This time looking at the G Mixolydian mode, focusing on centering around measuring from the G note located on the 5th string down from the top of the guitar, fret number 8, and this is part number 2. Noting one of our major objectives is to orient all of our resources in the same direction, making them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar, who is of course located behind the guitar. Therefore, for example, my guitar is going to look like I'm playing left-handed, but no, we just flipped the guitar around to mirror your perspective from behind your guitar as though you were playing it into a mirror. Similarly, our Excel worksheet representing the fretboard will have this representing the low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right, oriented as though we took our guitar and imprinted the strings on the screen. Now, I'm stumbling around a lot this morning trying to do the intro here because apparently I got a comment saying that I've been saying the term orient and oriented incorrectly, such as we orient the fretboard in a particular direction, because I kept saying orient, orientate, and orientated. We orientated the fretboard this way. Now, I looked it up, and it does seem like I'm saying it incorrectly. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. I don't know how I picked up a tick of saying the wrong word, because I am a native English speaker. I don't know what has happened. Am I the only one that wants to say orientated when we talk about orientating the fretboard instead of oriented the fretboard? I don't know. I feel like I'm back in one of my first jobs calling the manila folders vanilla folders. I don't know how that happened. At least the vanilla folders look vanilla colored, so I kind of get where I picked that one up. I don't know if I'm wrong about the orientated thing. I don't know where that came from. I don't know, but I'll try to fix it if I'm wrong about it. It's really hard, so bear with me. I probably won't be able to do it without a lot of practice, but I'll practice if I'm wrong. So in any case, we're going to be practicing our intervals around this G string. This G string's located on the 8th fret. We're on the B string. It's the 5th string down from the top, and we're going to be using the same shape, which basically means we're going to be doing intervals related to the Mixolydian. Now I want to go over a quick recap once again, why we might want to be learning, say, the Mixolydian, and I want to touch in a little bit more given the fact that the Mixolydian kind of ties into like a bluesy type of progression to the concept that many people have in their mind of learning theory can actually decrease your ability to play, is what goes through a lot of people's minds, including mine at some points in my life, right? Because you think about the blues and you think about improvisation, like you're improvising when you're doing the blues, and you would think that too much theory might kind of mess up just your flow as you're just kind of trying to flow and whatnot as you play. You're not playing a rigorous, it's not like the classical guitar, which is a cool thing as well, but you're trying to get quite technical and play exactly what some musical genius wrote down. Instead, it's a performative art that you're trying to get into a flow, and things going to be having a pattern but somewhat different, right? So you're kind of riffing off of a similar kind of pattern, and you can get to the mindset of saying, well, if I'm overthinking it, then that's going to mess me up, so I actually want to learn less. And then also, I think part of the thing that adds into that thought process is the idea that the blues came out of a system where possibly people weren't rigorously thinking about theory. Of course, they were thinking about less theory and using their ear a lot more, and that's kind of where like this blues concept kind of came from. So you would think if that's the way it came up, that's the way that's the way it's done, right? And I guess there is some truth to that. Like in my mind, I get into that kind of thought process sometimes as well. You also have a lot of like blues and rock people that when I was growing up, they were all kind of messes. They were on drugs and alcohol and whatnot. So you start to think, well, maybe drugs and alcohol is going to be helping to loosen the mind up so that you can be in a state of flow. You have less anxiety, at least possibly, would be the general idea. The problem there, of course, is the drugs and alcohol. You might get that like hour or so of the perfect lucid mind to kind of play in the groove, but then after that, you're losing a lot of time on as well. Whereas if you were able to like meditate or something in order to loosen up the anxiety so you can get in a state of flow a bit more, then of course you might be able to maintain it for a longer period of time, have more actual control over it. So I'm not, it is what it is. Those are things that kind of come up when you get into like a bluesy kind of thing, because a lot of times when you look at the bluesy kind of thing from a technical standpoint, it's actually messy, right? Because then again, you can look at it from different kind of angles when you get kind of technical on it. And so my theory is that, I'm not an expert on the history of any of this stuff. I'm just thinking like how the blues might have developed if I was in a situation where I was like tinkering around with the guitar, right? If I was tinkering around with the guitar, I think back before YouTube and all that kind of stuff, probably had a general idea of, music theory, and then you possibly had that pentatonic shape, which is going to be position number 1, that people know quite well. And if I know that, then I'm going to try to use that same position to move up and down the fretboard. But I don't really know the theory to move up and down the fretboard that we're really kind of drilling down here. What I do know is that position. So I'm going to try to move that same position up the fretboard possibly, right? That's what I would try to do, naturally, you would think. And then I'm going to use my ear a lot to basically bend or slide into certain notes where I need to in order for it to sound good, right? So that you would think like if I was just kind of seeing how that might come up, that's how you would think it would come up, right? You're going to use my ear a lot more than the technical knowledge. On my side, as an accountant, I use a lot more technical knowledge because I'm looking at the thing in terms of a fretboard, and I'm not doing stuff as much with the ear because I have so much capacity to use all this other stuff, to learn the concepts behind it. Whereas if I didn't have all this stuff, I would think I would be tinkering more with just my ear and whatever shape I know, and then I'm just going to change. I'm just going to orientate that shape. I'm going to work my way up and down the fretboard using that shape, but then tweak it and bend it to what sounds good to my ear, which of course happens to be an equivalent with theory, because that ties into theory. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting when you get into this, like the Mixolydian, which kind of gets into the bluesy thing, is that people start to think, well, if you learn too much theory, you can't break out of the paradigm. I think that's the other kind of weird thing that's there. The reason I think the bluesy thing started to work is because in Europe, when they were doing their kind of guitar, when they were doing their music stuff and whatnot, they started to use conventions that were tied to storytelling. So if it's tied to storytelling and you're trying to tell a story with music and you started picking up a convention that says the major scale is always for happy stuff and the minor scale is always for sad stuffs, and the flat fifth or some kind of tensiony stuff is always for evil stuff or problems or risk or danger, that's just the convention of the story, then you're not going to start playing stuff that has a mixture of a minor third and a major third, which the blues does all the time, right? Because what does that do for a story? What are you trying to tell people? I don't know if I'm happy or sad, right? It doesn't work for the convention. And if you start throwing in like a flat five that usually means danger in a story concept, that doesn't make sense if it's not in a story context, right? So I think the blues, by knowing less about the conventions, were able to break out of the conventions that were only there because of the way the music was being used to tell a story instead of just getting into a cool groove or whatever, right? So I think, so the reason I'm pointing this out is because we're doing a lot of kind of theory stuff, and I think, like, from a science standpoint, this kind of stuff happens too. People get into like this thought process and the concept of a theory in science, and they learn within the scope of the theory, within that parameters, and they can't break out of the theory. And then some genius like Einstein comes in and totally changes the game. He's like, wait a sec, I'm just going to change this component. This doesn't fit, and the whole game changes, right? And I think, and so the question is, how can that come up, and how can you kind of come up with a new paradigm that you're thinking in? Should you try to come up with a new paradigm that you're thinking in by not learning the convention or not learning the theory to me, I don't think that's the way to go, right? To me, I'm obviously an advocate of learning the theory because I think that actually expands things. That's what I'm trying to kind of argue here. You learn the theory, and then you try to find the places where there are conventions. Like if you were able to see that the opera was using these conventions in the forms of an opera, then you can break out of it and say, no, I'm going to mix the major and minor because it sounds cool, and I'm not trying to tell a story with it. And that's going to get you into trouble possibly with the people that are in the convention, because then you're going to start using flat fives and whatnot, and they're going to say you're playing something evil because you're using flat fives, and I don't know if I'm happy or sad. That's stupid. And that's fine. People can call you, then you have to deal with people calling you stupid because you're in the paradigm and you're doing something different, right? But I think you can consciously see the paradigm and then do something different, right? That's kind of my argument so my basic takeaway is, should you not learn theory so that you can be more expressive in like a bluesy type of thing? I don't think so, although I think you should maybe focus on your ear training more than maybe I do, to try to do stuff more by ear. But I think that the theory actually allows you to expand and be more creative because you have a better grasp of your fretboard, and then it lets you reach out further than that. And then of course, should you do drugs and alcohol because that helps you loosen your mind or give less anxiety or what? I don't think that's possibly the way to go. It might work for a lucid hour or something like that. But again, you'd far better off if you were able to release the anxiety some other way, exercise and meditation or something like that, because then again, you can go a lot longer with a lucid mind if you're able to do that. That's not easy to do all the time. Drugs is the easy way to do that, but that's not it's the shortcut. It's not the good cut most of the time. Anyway, so that's going to be the general idea. So if I go up to the top, then you will recall we're in like the major scale. Let me just show you what I mean here. So we're learning the same shape, comparing stuff to the major scale, and then going through all the modes, right? And that one reason is because I can take the shape on the fretboard and move it up, and then I can play in any major scale and related modes. So if I know any shape, whatever shape I pick, in this case the shape of C major and the related modes, let me try to give an idea of what I'm talking about here. Like I could, if I'm thinking in a bluesy thing, this is, again, I'm not a master's of, I don't have a master's in music or anything. But I've been tinkering with this for a while now. So this is what I would think of it, right? This is what I would call shape number 1, although it's got 7 notes in it. Now, if you're playing in this shape and you're saying, I'm going to think of myself in the key of C, notice the shape goes like this, goes boom, boom. The 5-note pentatonic shape goes like this, dut, 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 and then copy and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste. And this should be back here. So there's the 5-note pentatonic, here to here, and here to here, here to here, here to here, do, 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 do. And then you add the other 2 notes in there, gets it to the 7-note total scale. Now, if I played it from A, then that would be the minor, right? A minor scale. I'd be playing in Aeolian, and most likely most people think of the blues in the C major. But this shape, I can still play that shape if I'm playing in the C major, and then orientate myself around this C. And then I think what happened is they knew this shape, right? If I knew this shape, I can also kind of do this same shape up above here, right? If I did the same shape, it would go to here. Right, now notice that's outside the scale, and then it would go to here, and then it would go to here, and then it would go to here. Well, let's try to do it in a different color. It would go this side of the shape would go here, C to here, copy, and then it would go and let's do it inside here. It would go from here to here, and then it would go from here to here, and then it would go from here to here, here to here, here to here, and actually this one would be out here, and then here, and then to here. Right, so notice this shape doesn't quite fit. Let me see if I got that. Boom, 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 boom. Right, okay, so actually, wait a sec. Hold on, I got the shape wrong here. I gotta pull this. On the yellow shape, it goes from here to here, and then if I move the whole shape up, it would go from here to here. Okay. So notice so that means that I'm going to use the same shape, right? The same pentatonic shape on both sides. And notice when I start using it from this C, I end up on the flat third. And so what am I going to do? If I start to do that by ear, I'm like, okay, I'm located around this C, and then I hit that one. It doesn't sound quite right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend it up, right? And that's the classic bend. So I'm just using the same pentatonic both over here and the same shape. But then I'm going to twist the shape into the major, twisting it to the major here. And then when I go down, I don't get the third that way, but I still have a note that's kind of in, that's in the full scale if I was to play this shape here. And then I get my G, and then here is going to be the 7. So notice what's happening here when I play this 7. Instead of having the major 7, this shape actually gives me the minor 7. So now that's where I've basically converted by doing this shape. I'm now naturally converting to a Mixolydian scale. I've basically converted the C major to the Mixolydian, right? And here's the root, and then I'm going to go here, which is once again the flat third, which I would bend up to this third. See, and then here's once again the flat. I'm on the flat 7, which would be the Mixolydian. That's the bluesy note, and then from here to here, once again on the third. That's the flat third. So you see what happened here is I can basically use this same shape here, but then focus around the C on this side, and then when I play it on this side, I can use the same shape, but I'm gonna bend up right, that where I need to bend up. How would I know to do that? When it came out, that they were just using your ear and saying, well, this sounds cool, it seems like I gotta go, and that came, and I think that developed the natural bends that happen. So that's why this position is so ubiquitous. It's used all the time, position number 1, because I think that's the one that people were most comfortable with in a pentatonic position. And then when you're trying to move up the fretboard, what are you naturally going to do? I'm going to use the same pentatonic position around this note, and then I'm going to use my ear to tweak the shape that I know to the shape that I want. So if you want to, so I would say that if you're trying to get the classic sound, the really old school sound, I would think that mirroring this process might be the way to go. But when you do this, if someone tells you this, if someone told you to do this from a theory standpoint, you're really gonna be like, what in the world are you doing? Like, it doesn't make right, because they got it by ear. So it's gonna be really hard to communicate that to someone else. Can't you hear that it's the same shape, but then you bend it up that way? Can't you hear that? Well, no, I can't hear that because my ear's not developed yet like yours is, right? It's going to be very difficult. So that's why the blues, to me, it's actually pretty difficult to communicate it sometimes that way, right? So notice that, so one way that you could do that is I can play the C, I can play in the key of C, and if I was to kind of try to, the other way I can think about it is that I'm playing around this C right here, right? And then I'm flattening the 7, and I'm always kind of tinkering around with the third, which again, you could build from that position 1 shape from a pentatonic and then build on it from there if you want to kind of think about it that way. Now if you knew this same shape, I could start on the C. And by the way, a lot of the major blues I think is more common. I like to play it from the A major, right? Or the E major, I think is more common, but I want to stick with the same, and you can totally do that by just shifting the entire shape that we're learning and all the intervals over. But we're going to be playing, if you use this same shape in the same location, you can play it around the C and basically flatten the 7 and then have the minor third. And you can do it, you can try to think about it from the standpoint of that 5-note pentatonic shape, which might give you a better feel for like the classic blues sound, because it's going to force you to bend or slide into certain notes from that shape, such as the minor third to the major third, and then it'll already include the flat 7 on this side, and when you use it there. Now the other way you can do it is I can say, well, I know these same notes, and instead of thinking about the C major, I can go to the Mixolydian. So I could just say, well, let me just make that the 1, and if I go to the Mixolydian, then I'm using the same pattern, but now I'm looking here on the G Mixolydian. So I could do the same kind of concept and think about the same idea from a 5-note pentatonic pattern, meaning that if I played from here leaning forward, I'd get that same thing, right? If I played this on position 1, from here to here, and then from here to here, and so on, then you're gonna get once again that flat, that you're gonna end up hitting the minor third, which you would bend into the major third. So again, you can play it around the G, and then on the other side of the G, you can once again play position 1 again, coming from the open string to this G right here. That's one way that you can think of it, so that you're always playing in that pentatonic pattern, which is kind of like, I think, the classic way to kind of think of it. Or you can think of it like you're in the major scale. So I could flatten, how do I get to a major scale from the Mixolydian? The 10th is the difference, right? So that 10th is the difference. It's a flat 10. So this F right here is now flattened. So if it was a major scale, the only difference is this would be up 1. So I could, if I was thinking to myself in G major, then I could just simply flatten the 7, right? That's going to be the other way you can think it. If I'm thinking in G Mixolydian, however, it's already flattened. So right, so now this note already has a flat 7 in it. So basically, we can think of it from that perspective. So there's pros and cons to doing it either way. I just want to point that out. What would be really cool is if I can turn my mind on different orientations of how I think about it. Like I'd like to be able to think about it like the classic shape, like using the 5-note pentatonic, and then be able to improvise and be able to bend, possibly using my ear. But I want to be able to explain that to somebody, which means I'm going to have to convert that to theory, because other people's ears will not be as developed as my ear, right? I'm going to have to say, why in the world are you using like the minor shape in 2 places and thinking about it that way? And it's like, well, I'm thinking about it that way because that gives me the classic bends that I'm looking at, and I can compare that to the C major, right? Or I can switch my mind and think about myself in the C major scale, and then flatten the 7 to get to the minor component. Or I can think of myself as G Mixolydian, or as in a Mixolydian, which already has the flat 7. So no matter which way you think of it, you're kind of flattening the third, and you're playing around with the major 7 and minor 7. That's going to be the general idea. Okay. So anyways, that's going to be the convoluted intro here. So we're going to be on the Mixolydian. So I would recommend, like, the thing that kind of gets to me sometimes is like when you talk to somebody about like playing something, particularly the blues, people tend to say, well, you're not thinking about it the right way, because this is the way I kind of think about it. And I'm not an expert on the way, like the proper way to think about it. But I think the whole point is that they were thinking about it in a different way. That's why they came up with a different paradigm. So there's multiple ways that you can approach it because it's mixed in between. It's like the in-between zone between a major and minor scale. So the general idea would be, to me, the main things we're tinkering with is the third, if you're talking about major third, smearing from the minor third to the major third, and the seven, having a flat seven, which basically is the Mixolydian. So if you tell someone we're playing in Mixolydian because it's a major blues and I'm going to think about it in Mixolydian, they might say, well, that's not how you think about major blues. I think about it as a major scale that I'm going to do this, or a pentatonic that I'm going to do that. And again, all the ways you look at it are good perspective to look at it. It's going to be, but it's quite difficult to communicate all the different ways. And what you'd like to be able to do is be able to communicate all the different ways. If you can talk about it in different ways, to me, that will allow you to open up the way you play it as well. That's going to increase your ability to improvise, because if I improvise based on like the pentatonic scale and bending, I'm going to do different stuff than if I improvise on thinking about it from a Mixolydian. Then if I think about it as a major scale where I flat the seven, I'm just gonna naturally do different stuff. So I can actually kind of improvise around by using the same thing, playing in like say a G blues, by simply switching the way I'm orientating my mind on how I'm playing the blues. I'm playing it now by looking at a pentatonic scale that I'm bending, versus now I'm thinking about it as a major scale where I'm adding a flat seven, versus now I'm thinking of it from the perspective of a Mixolydian scale, versus now I'm thinking of it the same notes but a 3-note per string thing, right? Instead of so now I'm right. So those. All right. Let's get into it now. So basically, the intervals that we have for the Mixolydian is a 0-note away perfect first, a 2-note away major second, a 4-note away major third, a 5-note away perfect fourth, a 7-note away perfect fifth, a 9-note away major sixth, and then the different interval from the major scale is a 10-note away minor seven. That's going to be the big one. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to try a quick joke before I move on here. I got kind of a few jokes I want to get through for my practice jokes. All right. Am I the only one that thinks whenever I hear like a dramatic movie line of "the time is now"? You hear someone like "the time is now," and I'm just sitting there thinking like, no crap, the time is now. The time is always now, for crying out loud. I mean, what other time? Why are you saying it all like it's some deep thing or something? What other time could it possibly be than now, for crying out loud? I mean, you got this movie going on with some general like on a horse yelling to like 10,000 troops, "The time is now." And I just imagine all the troops looking at him like stupidly, going, "What in the world are you going on about up there on your horse, for crying? The time is now. No crap. Do you want us to attack these guys or what? Stop just sitting up there stating the obvious like some bureaucratic moron. Tell us what we're supposed to do here, for crying." So maybe instead of stating the obvious, you should do like a countdown to attack. You should do the countdown, so we know that's going to help us to orient ourselves to do the attack. One time, just speaking of people that get the attack call incorrectly, they often, it's hard to line that thing up apparently to get the same kind of attack call, because one time I was singing that old song, it's called, it's raining, it's pouring, because it was raining lately. And then when I got to the line, "The old man is snoring," some of my neighbors grabbed their pitchforks, yelling, "Hey, the old man is snoring. That's when we attack. Let's get him. Mama needs a new pair of shoes." It's like, honestly, that wasn't supposed to be an attack cry, you barbarians. What in the world is right? Seriously, it's just a song. It's ridiculous. What the hell? So I think, people get confused on what the attack cry is. You have to be, this again, it's the language. You got to be specific because people have these different ideas on what the attack cry is. All right, so we're looking at the 4-note away major third. This 3 represents the third position relative to position 1 of the scale. The 4 represents how many notes away it is from the root, which is going to be the G up top. Note that we're on the third, so from a normal chord construction, we skip every other note, the odd notes being included. Therefore, we don't need to rename it. You've got the 1, 3, 5. Also noting that the 3 is basically the flavor of a 3-note triad and basically of any modal type of chord. And therefore, it's going to be quite important for us to basically identify as a major third or a minor third. So we're looking at then the third, and it's also from the standpoint of a blues kind of situation, the one that we could smear to go from like a minor to a major. So typically when you do that, you're talking about a half step going from the minor to the major to give you that kind of feel of, that kind of thing. So let's do this. So we're gonna go, if it's 4 notes away, I can go on the same string up to here. So it's just going to be 4 notes away from, I'm on this G on the 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. So there's the sound if we practice our ear training, which I could possibly use more work on. But that's part of the, that's probably a good thing to do while you're doing this kind of practice, I would think, as well. And then we can go above it. So if I go above it, I'm going to be crossing the fault line. And by the way, that note right here, where's the minor? It's going to be right before it. So obviously if you're going from here to here, you could use your pinky. Or sometimes people use this one, which works better if you're on the top half part of the guitar because it's a bit stronger of a finger. Anyway, all right, so let's go above it then. And so we'll go up here. We're going across the fault line because this is where the fault line lies. So if I go up from the B to the G, that's when we cross the fault line because this tectonic plate shifted to the right. That means to go a distance of 5 notes, which is typically the distance between 2 strings, I'm going to go diagonal backwards this way. I always want to go 5-note distance because I can count in 5s more easily than I can count in 4s, which is the distance between these 2 strings. So we're going to say this is going to be a -5, 6, wait a sec, -5, and then I need to look for the inverse distance as well. So I'm looking for a 4-note away major third. 12 minus 4 is going to be 8. So I look for a distance of 8. So it's going to be -5, 6, 7, 8. So let's count it out here. We're going to say from this G, -5, -5, 6, 7, 8. So if I went from top to bottom, that would be a 8-note away, which would be a minor 6. And if I went from bottom to top, measuring from the G, therefore, that would be a 4-note away major third. Where's the minor third? Behind it. So if I was to smear up this way, right? Can't really reach. Whatever. You can play with that. All right, let's go. And so that means that if I go up 1 string, the 4-note away major third will be, and cross the fault line, 4-note away major third will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. But I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on the bottom string and go up 1 string, or if I was anywhere above it and I go up 1 string. So if I was on like this G and I went up 1 string, it would be to here. So the general rule would be, if I go up 1 string, the 4-note away major third will be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 4-note away major third will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back. Okay, let's go up 2 strings. Up 2 strings. Oh, get out of the way, thing. It has to be an orange one. All right, let's go up 2 strings. So we're looking for the 4-note away major third. Therefore, we need the inverse distance because we're going above it. So 12 minus 4 is 8. So I'm going to say this is going to be -5, 10, 9, 8. So if I go from here, so it's going to be -5, 10, -5, 10, 9, 8. So boom, boom, top to bottom would be a 8-note away minor 6, therefore, bottom to top would therefore be a 4-note away major third. So if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 4-note away major third will be 1 fret forward, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on the G or the D string and I went up 2 strings. So if I was on this G and I went up to here, for example, then it would be 2. So the general rule would be if I go up 2 strings, the 4-note away major third will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on if I start on the B or the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 4-note away major third will be 1 fret forward. Okay, let's go to the next one. Otra vez. Otra vez. Let's go back here. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be right in the middle. So I could go back here, or I can go up here. So going this way would possibly be the easier way to go if I was right in the middle, because I'm going to be on shorter distance of the frets. So if let's count it out. I'm looking for the 4-note away major third. So I look for the inverse distance because I'm going above it. Therefore, I'm looking for 12 minus 4, which is a distance of 8. Diagonal because I'm crossing the fault line, 5, 10, 15. There's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, so I can bring that down by taking 15 minus 12 to -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, or I can go 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is -3, -3, 2, 1, 0, or octave, which I can also go back around the horn to 12, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. So this is the equilateral triangle that we can see here. 6, the furthest distance away it can be B if I don't hit like the nut or the end of the guitar on the body of the guitar. So that means that if I go up 3 strings, then the 4-note away major third, which could also be, well, let me count it up this way. I didn't count it this way. So if I count it up from this G, it's going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, -3, -2, -1, -0. That gets me to the octave, or 12, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. So here, so we're going from here, way up here to here. That would be top to bottom would be an 8-note away, which would be a minor 6. Bottom to top, therefore, would be a 4-note away major third. So if mine, 10, 12, 13, 14, So if I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 strings, the 4-note away major third, and I cross the fault line, the 4-note away major third will be 6 frets up and also 6 frets back, therefore. But I wouldn't cross the fault line if I started on this G string, for example. But I'm going to go up to this G up here, because then if I go up 1, 2, 3, it would be back here, which will only be 5 back, because the tectonic plate shifted the root up. So that means that the general rule would be, if I go up 3 strings, the 4-note away major third will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times on the bottom B and the E string, in which case if that's my root and I go up 3 strings, then I'll go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, and the 4-note away major third will be 6 frets back, which means it's also going to be 6 frets forward. All right, I think I got that right, hopefully. Let's go to the next one. That's the one you're possibly not going to be using all the time because that's quite a distance. This one, more common. So now we're going to go up 4 strings. So now we're going to go up 4. So we're going to say, all right, we're going to look for a 4-note away major third. Therefore, we take the inverse distance. 12 minus 4 is 8. So it's going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, plus another 5 is 8. Let's do it this way. So if I go from here to here, it's going to be -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, plus another 5 is 8. Top to bottom then would be an 8-note away minor 6, and therefore the bottom to top from the G is going to be a 4-note away major third. 4-note away major third. So that means if I go up, and by the way, the minor third, it will be right before it. So if you can kind of say, if I was here, you play with the minor third. Anyway, if I go up 4 strings, I will cross the fault line every time because I can't go up 4 strings without crossing the fault line. Therefore, the 4-note away major third will always be 1 fret back. All right, and then let's go below it. By the way, to find that, I could have said, why don't I find the string below it and then match it to the one above it? So if I'm going to go below it, then I don't have to look at the inverse distance. I look for a distance of a 4-note away major third, and I don't need to cross the fault line because there is no fault line between these 2 strings. So it's just going to be then 5 straight below it, and then 4 behind it, and there's the B here, which matches the B up top. That should be the most common shape that we kind of recognize. It's going to be 5 and 4, so top to bottom would be a 4-note away major third, and therefore bottom to top, measuring from the B, would be the inverse 12 minus 4, an 8-note away minor 6. So that means if I go down 1 string, the 4-note away major third will be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string. So like right here, then, so the rule is if I go down 1 string, the 4-note away major third will be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, in which case the 4-note away major third, if I go down 1 string and cross the fault line, the 4-note away major third will be on the same fret. By the way, here's the minor right there. So if I was playing down here, here's my like D major shape, right? But then my minor. Anyway. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's tell a quick joke before we go to the next one. We're running kind of long here, but I wrote down a couple jokes I want to get through for my joke practice. You know, there's a little bit political, this one, so beware if you want to fast forward it. You know, those sneaky, corrupt bureaucrats in the government keep trying to stop Doge. They keep trying to dodge Doge. They keep trying to dodge Doge in their auditing process. And it looks like they're actually attacking Elon Musk's personal businesses, his business interests, instead of just complying with the audit. It's an audit, for crying out loud. Give them the document. It's crazy. Honestly, it's strange to watch some of these like environmental nut jobs over there. They have no idea or real understanding of how energy policy actually works, how energy works, how energy is conserved or anything like that. But they think it's a good idea to put a ban on like all fossil fuels, which again, that's not how it's going to work. It doesn't make any sense. But then, given that's their objective, they attack the largest producer of electric cars. You know, it's just really weird. You know, like you got these environmentalist people that want to stop any fossil fuels, and now you got those kind of people attacking the largest non-fossil fuel automakers in the world. Like, what is going on? Next they're gonna try to stop global warming by nuking the glaciers, right? I mean, it'd be the same kind of thing. The environmentalists will be out there. We need to save the world. How are we going to do it? Let's drop a nuclear bomb on the glaciers. That's how. It's like, it doesn't make any. Like, what is happening? Seriously though, I think these bureaucrats keep the government document in a literal mine shaft. They're keeping documents in a literal mine shaft so that in the event of an audit, they can just light the entire mine shaft on fire, you know? They're like, oh, you want the documents, do you? You want the documents. And then they just light the mine shaft on fire. They're like, I don't know what happened. We must have hit some kind of natural gas as we were digging in the mine for the documents you wanted. And then the whole mine shaft caught on fire. There's nothing we can do about it now, but just let it, we gotta just let it do a slow burn for like the next 2 years. The mine shaft just gonna be slow burning underground, just burning all the documents. It's too hot to go down there. We just have to let it be. We're really sorry about that. It's like, and prior administrations would be like, oh, I'm sorry that I think you're completely honest. It's like, no, they burnt it on purpose. They're not giving you the documents on purpose, for crying out. Get the documents. You get them, Musk. Honestly, I'm thinking, I almost think my neighbors probably have some kind of similar plan with a mine shaft that they have over there where they stash all of his stolen treasures, right? They use the same tactic as the government. They put all the stolen treasures in the mine shaft, and then he like goes into the mine so he can sit on the stolen treasures like a dragon, laughing. He's like, I have my treasures on my mine. And then he's like, looky here at all my worthless treasures I have that I'm sitting on. Here, looky here. It's an old man's reading glasses. Ah, the thought of an old man squinting really brings joy to me. And here, a random door lock. This pathetic lock couldn't keep out a dragon. If I didn't steal it before it was installed, it still would be worthless. It's these feebletons, I tell you. And look at this treasure I stole. It's a cheap chair with no arms and a wide seat designed so you can play guitar and sit like Indian style on it. As a dragon, I don't play guitar or sit Indian style, which makes the frivolous theft even more appealing. It's more pure. Theft just for theft's sake. Now that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. I think he probably works for the government. They're doing this. He's applying the same tactics the governments are doing with his dragon mind as the bureaucrats. You get them, Musk. Get those documents. I'll buy. I don't even know how a battery car works, but I'm ready to buy one. I'll buy one. All right, we'll go to the next one here. This is going to be the fourth, because it's the fourth here, perfect fourth. And so this 4 stands for the relative position 4, and this 5 stands for the distance, not to be confused of the 5-note away perfect fourth and the 7-note away perfect fifth. Those can be confusing because of the 2 5s here. This is a 5-note away perfect fourth. The inverse is a 7-note away perfect fifth. Now, because this is a fourth, that means that it's not going to be in our group of chord construction notes, because we skip every other note. 1, 3, 5, 7. Last note is the 7, and therefore we're going to go around the horn. The 9 is equivalent to the 2, and the 11 then is equivalent to the 4. So then from a chord construction standpoint, we have to have 2 names for the same thing, which often happens in our Western music consumption, the way we conceptualized it. So it's either going to be a 5-note away perfect fourth or an 11-note away perfect, a 5-note away perfect fourth or a 5-note away perfect 11th. Okay, so then if I go on the same string, it's going to be 5 notes away from this G, which would be up here. So boom, 5 notes away. So if I went from this G to here, that's what it's going to sound like. So the 5, notice that the perfect fourth is in the major scale and it's in the normal minor scale as well. So we see it all the time, but it's not as ubiquitous as the 7-note away perfect fifth, because again, we kind of skip it when we do basically our chord construction. So it's possibly not as comes to your mind as easy as the shapes for the perfect fifth, although it is the inverse shapes. All right, so let's go above it. So if I go above it, I'm looking for this C. So we're going to go above it and cross the fault line. So whenever I go above it, I have to take a look at the inverse distance. So a 5-note away perfect fourth is 12 minus 5, which is going to be a 7. The inverse of the perfects are each other. So it's going to be a 7 notes away distance that we're looking for. I have to cross the fault line. I'm going to cross diagonally this way to get a distance of 5. So I'm going to go 5, 6, 7. Let's count it out this way. So we're going to be from here, -5, -6, -7. So if I went from top to bottom, from the C to G, that would be a 7-note away perfect fifth. Bottom to top, therefore, from the G, bottom to top is a 5-note away perfect fourth. Therefore, if I go up one string, the 5-note away perfect fourth is going to be 3 frets back if I cross the fault line. But I wouldn't cross the fault line like if I was here on the bottom bit. The only time I would cross the fault line is on the string if I was going up one string. So if I was here or if I was here, I wouldn't cross the fault line. So that means that normally, if I go up one string, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, will be 2 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, which is where I happen to be, in which case, if I go up one string and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, is going to be 3 frets back. All right, let's go up another string, try to crank this out. We're running long on time, pulling too much time, going 2 strings up above it. I'm looking for a 5-note away perfect fourth, so I take the inverse distance. 12 minus 5 is 7. I have to go diagonal because we're crossing the fault line for a distance of 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. So let's go from here. We're going to go 5, 10, and then I'm going to go -10, 9, 8, 7. So right there, that's C. So top to bottom would be a 7-note away, which would be a perfect fifth. Bottom to top, therefore, would be a 5-note away perfect fourth. So if I go up 2 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line. If I cross the fault line, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I was on either the G or the D string. So if I was on this G string and I went up 2 strings, it would be here. So the rule is, if I go up 2 strings, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, will be 3 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times that I could go up 2 strings on the B and the E string, in which case, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, is going to be 2 frets forward. Okay, so let's go up to the next one. I'm wearing down here. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. So I'm looking for the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, looking for the inverse distance because I'm going above it. 12 minus 5 is a distance of 7. I have to go diagonal because I'm crossing the fault line to get to a distance of 5, 10, 15. There's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet, so I can bring that back down by taking 15 minus 12, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. Let's do it from here. So it's going to say -5, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. So from here to here, so if I went from this C to G, that would be a 7-note away perfect fifth, and therefore from bottom to top would be a 5-note away perfect fourth or 5-note away perfect 11. So that means if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth or 5-note away perfect 11 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. And I wouldn't cross the fault line only if I started on the G string. So if I was on this G string and I went up, then I would be here. So the general rule is, if I go up 3 strings, then the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11, will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen 2 out of 3 times. By the way, the last one I messed up. The last one, if I go up 2 strings, wasn't 2 out of 3 times. It would be even crossing the fault line versus not crossing the fault line. This is the one where I can only go up using these 3 strings to go up 3 strings. So 2 out of 3 times I would cross the fault line, and this time I wouldn't. So if I go up So the rule is, if I go up 3 strings, then the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the B and the E string. In which case, if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11, will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. Okay. Otra vez. Let's go here. All right, if I go to the top string, it might be easier for me to go below it and then match that to the top string. So if I'm on this string, I'm going to say, well, if I measure to the one below it, it'll be the same note on the top. So I might say, if I go below it, I don't have to take the inverse distance. It would just be a distance of a 5-note away, and that would be right underneath it. I don't have to go diagonal because I'm not crossing the fault line. If it's a C here, it's a C up top. If I count it up top, however, I could say a negative. Now I need to take the inverse distance. 12 minus 5 is a distance of 7. I have to go diagonal across the fault line to get a distance of 5, 10, 15, 12 notes in a musical alphabet. 12 minus 15, or 15 minus 12 is negative 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then 7. So let's count it out this way. So negative 5, negative 10, negative 15. 15 minus 12 is negative 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then we go 8, 7. So top to bottom from this C to the G would be a 7-note away perfect fifth, and therefore the inverse would be a 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called a 5-note away perfect 11. So that means if I go up 4 strings, I will always cross the fault line because I can't go up 4 strings and not cross the fault line, and therefore the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, will always be on the same fret. All right, let's go below it. If I go below it, I don't have to look for the inverse distance, but can rather just look for the distance of 5-note away for the 5-note away perfect fourth, 5-note away perfect 11th. I don't have to cross the fault line because there is no fault line between the bottom 2 strings, so it's right below it to get a distance of 5. So here to here is going to be top to bottom 5-note away perfect fourth, which means, of course, bottom to top will be a 7-note away perfect fifth. All right, so that means that if I go down 1 string, the 5-note away perfect fourth will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1, it'll be 1 fret forward. So the general rule is if I go down 1 string, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, will be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string and cross the fault line, the 5-note away perfect fourth, which could also be called the 5-note away perfect 11th, will be 1 fret forward. All right, I'm going to try one more joke and then we'll stop it here. So the closing out joke here. Classic, starting off with a classic joke that isn't mine, but then I kind of go off it from there. All right, so here it goes. 2 guys walk into the bar. The 3rd guy ducked. Good one, right? Good one. I know 1 good one out of 3 is a good average. You had 1 good one out of 3 that remembered. So in any case, where did that bar come from, dang it? Why was that bar even there? Apparently the bartender used to make fun of his drunken, clumsy patrons until he finally took the plank out of his own eye. But as you can see, doing so because of the unmindful placement of the plank actually made the problem worse, you know? So the takeaway from the story by a few of my neighbors, however, seemed to be that, okay, so you mean if I find a good large plank and I place it somewhere randomly, then some stupid sitting idiot will probably walk into it and then I could pick his pocket. That's going to be great. And it's like, honestly, I'm not sure the lack of moral clarity here is clearly enough represented by the plank in the eye thing. You know, the plank in the eye, I don't think it's doing it. Do we have anything larger that may get the point across? It's like, first remove planet Jupiter from your own eye before it's the speck, before you have this. How about first you remove the planet Jupiter from your own eye, and then they're like, oh wow, just think how many people I could rob if I was able to club them with an entire planet, Jupiter, for crying out loud. We're going to be rich. Honestly, we may have a hopeless case here, people. I don't think metaphors even work around here. I don't know what to do.